Amen. We're continuing with our study, looking at principles of stewardship. Going to hand out some scriptures. We have our main text this morning is going to be Luke 29 through 16. Luke 29 through 16, Michael. And I'm going to have you hold that. We're going to hit it a couple of times, Luke 20. And I will share that with you. I get a couple more here. Luke 20 verses 1 and 2. Luke 21 and 2. Norma. Luke 15:29. Bonnie. 1 Corinthians 4:7. Tracy. Matthew 25, 28 through 29. Mary Ellen, if you can get that. And we'll pause there this morning. So what we're looking at is stewardship, and this is God's parallel that he's drawing from many things in the Word of God, where there's stories, there's illustration, there is references, and the issue of stewardship comes up many times, directly, indirectly, and we're looking at what it means to be a steward. We're looking at the blessings, the different areas. Today, what we're going to take a look at is attitudes that often harm stewardship. And so in that, we also know that it's attitudes that will harm God's blessing being able to be poured forth in our lives. And so attitudes that harm stewardship, and we'll look at attitude adjustments. If you can read our main text, Mike, Luke 20, 9 through 16.
Then he began to tell the people this parable. A certain man planted a vineyard, leased it to vine dressers, and went into a far country for a long time. Now at vintage time, he sent a servant to the vine dressers that they may give him some of the fruit of the vineyard. But the wine dressers beat him and sent him away empty-handed. Again, he sent another servant, and they beat him also, treated him shamefully, and sent him away empty-handed. And again, he sent a third, and they wounded him also and cast him out. Then the owner of the vineyard said, "What shall I do? I will send my beloved son. Probably they will respect him when they see him." But when the vine dressers saw him, they reasoned amongst themselves, "This is the heir. Come, let us kill him, that the inheritance may be ours." So they cast him out into the vineyard and killed him. Therefore, what will the owner of the vineyard do to them? He will come and destroy those vine dressers and give the vineyard to others. And when they heard it, they said, "Certainly not."
Right, attitude adjustment. I want to consider first the attitude of ownership. And so the story is something that would have been common in Jewish life. They would have understood it, and it illustrates stewardship. So an owner places what he owns into the hands of another, entrusts them with it, and expects them to do business. And we see this in Luke 20, verse 9. Then he began to tell the parable, the people this parable. A certain man planted a vineyard, leased it to the vine dressers, and went into a far country for a long time. So built into this idea is the right of ownership. He's not giving it to them and saying, "This is yours." He's simply, he has it set up. They didn't build this. He's giving this to them. He's telling them what to do, and there is a responsibility. So he laid claim to a percentage of the crops that were in that. Luke 20, verse 10.
10 or 1 and 2?
Mike has this one still.
Now at vintage time, he sent a servant to the vine dressers that they might give him some of the fruit of the vineyard. But the vine dressers beat him and sent him away empty-handed.
Okay, so he has ultimate control over what he owns, and he makes the final and ultimate decisions regarding this. And we, again, understand it as the story that's being told, and then also we understand it with this being the reference and we understand it that it's also talking kingdom matters. And so in this we gain understanding that God owns it all, we know that. But here's something that we can relate to, and that is the final decision, that he has right, he has claim, and it belongs to him. So over time, an attitude can creep into those who are, it's what is known as a tenant owner. It is somebody that they abide there, they reside there, they take care of it, and they handle it just like it's their own. But the problem is when a person begins to think that what God has given is their own, what the owner has given here, thinking that belongs to me, and how they look at it. And so resenting the ownership is an attitude that can begin to creep in. We resent, we're the vine dressers, we've been hired, and suddenly we resent that we're being asked in some way to give an account to the owner, and demands are being made on them by the owner. The next verse, verse 11 of Luke says, "And he sent another servant, and they beat him also, treated him shamefully, sent him away empty-handed." So here's something being asked. Here's somebody that is coming, somebody that has been sent to collect what is rightfully the owner's, and they're saying, no, we're not giving to that. What would be an example of that for us? What's something that God has ownership to, that he collects? Okay, tithe. It's God's. Who does he usually send to do it? In a figurative sense. He puts a pastor before us, or somebody that's before us. They take they give an illustration, story, or just encourage us to give, and reminding us to give. And this is the owner's. We're giving to his cause. We're giving back to him. And there's some that resent that God actually expects something back, and they speak shamefully and they treat shamefully those who try to collect simply what's God's. And so this is what demands tend to stir up resentment in us. And I'm not asking again that no critiquing, just what we deal with. Tracy.
Our time.
Okay, our time. God does make demands on our time. He makes calls for our time, and that's one area. What's another? We said it with tithe, so money. God makes requests concerning our money. Nancy.
Our plans or what we want to do.
Okay, God has so here's a playing out of it, our time. But God, no, I don't want you doing that. But it's mine. It's my plans, my time, my preference, and God has the right to make demands. What are some other areas? Michael.
Our effort, our work.
Okay, our work, our labors. There's accountability. He makes requests, and he holds us accountable. And they didn't, in our story, they didn't like it. They treated shamefully the one that he sent. He didn't come himself, he sent another. And they treated shamefully, they beat, and sent away with nothing. And so accountability, no, I'm not doing it. Our time, our calling. That's not just pastors. Everybody has a calling in doing the will of God. There is certain things that overlap. There's certain areas that are unique to a pastor possibly, but still the same. There's a call upon all of our lives, and God has the ability to make demands on that. So it's looking at things, what stirs up resentment in us, or what stirs up the attitudes that we have to recognize, and those are areas that a parable like this should speak to us, not to condemn. And we don't just push it, well, I'm feeling condemned, or I'm feeling bad, so therefore I'm not supposed to feel that, so I push it aside. It's so we can deal with whatever might be the problem, or the area of struggle that that comes up. Another is that they view themselves as owners. They're operating as owners, someone that is a tenant steward. I have a right to make choices over my life. My will is the highest. I don't need to consult you. And you can find always people that'll back you, pat you on the back, agree with you, hold hands, join arms with you, link up, but that's not true considering what God asks of us. Luke 20 verses 1 and 2.
Now it happened on one of those days, as he taught the people in the temple and preached the gospel, that the chief priests and the scribes, together with the elders, confronted him and spoke to him, saying, "Tell us, by what authority are you doing these things? Or who is he who gave you the authority?"
All right. And they're asking, who are they asking the question to? Mike, yeah, Jesus. They're asking, where'd you get this authority? And so they're asking Jesus this. How are you doing this? Who gave you the authority? And viewing themselves in a reverse role. It's the one, and specifically with Christ, the one that they're having difficulty with is Lord, and yet they don't recognize that. And so another thing that happens in attitude and what it produces is looking for ways to break free from the demands of ownership. Have you ever sought that from God? I can remember specifically early stages, God just feeling demand after demand from God on my life and actually asking him to stop. It's like, please stop making demands. Please stop. Because I was wrestling so much internally and the conflict, I don't want to say no. I'm struggling. You're making requests. And looking back, God has a way to show us you don't have everything it takes. You may be more willing at the particular place you're at in life than many. You don't have everything it takes. And the challenge of the stewardship, the ownership, in Luke 20 verse 14 says, "But when the vine dressers saw him, they reasoned among themselves, saying, 'This is the heir, come let's kill him, that the inheritance may be ours.'" And so looking for ways to break free. Okay, we'll kill him. We'll get rid of the pastor. We don't know what happened to him, Pastor Campo. He just disappeared. He's gone. And what are a few areas that people break free? Some areas that we try to break free. I asked God at one time, please stop. Really, I've learned what I wanted to ask is, please help me. I can't do everything you're asking. It's way beyond me. And so, but I asked him to stop. You have people in their youth that feel far more free. They don't understand boundaries, constraints. They don't why? They don't get it. Too young to know and well capable to make horrible decisions to wreck their whole life. And so this is youth. Sins that the Bible talks about fleeing the youthful sins. Our success, my success. Well, I did this. I worked hard for this. This is my success, and we try to break free on our own. I'm gonna be very successful in what I do. It can even be spiritual, and we can drive something that's not the hand of God. There's men that have actually attained ministry that it wasn't God's will for their life. There's also men that have become very successful in another field, running from the will of God. So success can be one. Rebellion. I'm not going to have a pastor restrict me. He's a token. Pastor Gutierrez preached a sermon asking the question, who's your pastor? And how some people can claim a pastor, but that means something, that person has the pastoral role, has influence, responsibility, is a go-to, not as somebody that runs our life, but as somebody that is put in place by God. And so I'm not going to have the fellowship and the standards. Somebody just ran into somebody that decided to do their own thing, and their immediate greet, hi, Merry Christmas. No, it was, there's life after Victory Chapel. It's like, well, what are you really saying? It's like, so try and, there's more than, I'm not going to have this constrain my life. And so this is fellowship restrictions. And ultimately we can point to the majority of what we do and be able to pull biblically from the pattern of the New Testament church. And yet, well, if you can delegate it to a man, to just an organization, and you can separate truth somehow, we have the great capacity to do that. They did it with Jesus. Then we can wrestle through, and we don't have to live up to the demands. I'm going to separate myself from the responsibility I have to the church or to a pastor or to a people. I'm going to separate myself and justify it and validate it and get people even to agree with me, but you're going to have a hard time biblically with that. And so this is what Jesus is speaking to. And so the question is why? Why do people begin to view themselves as owners in life? Why do people do that? Why do we, well, I am. Why do we, in this setting, why, what can you see from this setting? Why would they think they're owners? What would allow this, Norm?
Maybe they don't see the owner for a while, they don't
Okay.
hear from the owner.
The owner's absent, he's not around. And so it's just me and the other guys that are here, and so the absent, no one looking over their shoulder, nobody there, nobody that they're accountable to, they answer to themselves. It becomes easy to forget. It becomes easy for us to forget God for the same reason. In the day-to-day, it's easy because he's not always here. He's not always pressing us. He's not always hammering us. He's not dealing with us about every single thing, and especially as time goes on. That's what you want to do, okay? And he will send forth a word, he'll send forth something, but it doesn't change what he's already told us. And the longer we're saved, the greater our responsibility to heed what we already know and not have to have him show up like a new convert might. Mike?
Also, you can feel like you're doing all the work and you don't even realize or see what God is helping you to do that's beyond yourself.
Okay, very good. That's I have in here, we magnify our own contributions. We magnify our own contributions, and built into this style of tenant farming that they would have, somebody living there taking care of the land, is labor, is work, having to work, and beginning to feel like, well, look what I've done. This is, this isn't his work. This is my work. I've plowed the fields. I've won these people. I've prayed for them. I've fasted, and so I have more say in whatever it would be. And we can begin to tally. We can begin to magnify our contributions, where humbly and truthfully, what Jesus said, you can't do anything without me. No matter how fruitful you ever get, 1 million people won to Christ because of our church's labors or your or my individual labors, and it's cast the crown. God, you did it. Genuinely. We may have to wrestle through I had something to do with that, and he can quickly show us. The only thing you had to do is you were a body that showed up and you were willful. Well, yeah, I did that. No. We simply are being faithful to what he's already asked of us, helped us, shown us, taught us, equipped us, enabled us, gave us his spirit to be able to do, like Paul, I labor more abundantly than they all, yet in a true humility, he's like, but it's not me, it's the Holy Spirit. He's working through me. I couldn't do this on my own. And so this is the work to do. We can tally up and magnify our contributions. Luke 15:29.
So he answered and said to his father, Lo, these many years I have been serving you. I never transgressed your commandment at any time, and yet you never gave me a young goat, that I might make merry with my friends.
I got another translation. Listen to what this says. It said, but the older son said to the father, I have served you like a slave for many years and have always obeyed your commands. Now, the interesting thing based off of this is when you consider that we can feel that way towards God, or an area that we do really well somehow erases an area that we don't do as well. I hit a 12 at this specific area of my life, or these areas, and we can miss an area that I'm working on that, but we'll get that later. It's like, and God brings that to the forefront. Work on that. But do you see these other things? And this is I have served you like a slave for many years. That's an attitude. That's a mentality. I've been faithful all these years to you. And so what sets in and what makes us drop a standard, the week to week, day to day, our witness, our testimony, evangelism, prayer, the word, I always read and I always pray and I always do these things like, okay, are there areas that need work? Are there areas that are not up to par where they should be in our serving of them? Is there an area that we have relegated that we don't have to work as hard in that we don't receive? Maybe it's the preaching that challenges us and we just let that slip to the side or pitchfork it back to somebody behind us or to the side of us, and struggling with this. We can lose perspective. Saw a hand in the back, Vic.
My son-in-law and I, we were talking about longevity, people that have been in church for a while, hearing the gospel, hearing the same message, and how many decisions are made differently, some for blessing and some not for so much blessing. And it comes down to the point where we were discussing internal conviction. And it was interesting because we have a heritage. Look at Pastor Mitchell. For all of these years that he was out and was ministering and was taking a plane, going out to us, preaching at conference. He did this all of these years, and he maintained a testimony as because of his personal convictions. And in contrast, I just even today recently heard of somebody that I respected greatly that apparently hasn't kept up with what he preached. And that's Rabbi Zacharias, just came out. And so we have a heritage, but it comes down to your personal convictions. Some people just do not internalize it. This doesn't become theirs.
Very good. Very good. Because of this, we can lose perspective. We wouldn't have anything if the owner didn't allow us to have it or didn't give it to us. You and I would have nothing. 1 Corinthians 4:7.
For who maketh thee to differ from another? And what hast thou that thou did not receive? And if thou did not receive it, why dost thou glory as if thou hadst not received it?
All right. Why do you brag as if you did not receive it as a gift? Whatever we do, every single one of us, whatever we're doing, and if we're doing it well or if we're making progress, God has helped us. And if we're struggling, that is not something to lay aside. That's just another area that we need God's help, like all the other areas we need God's help. Human nature is very comfortable with what we're good at and very uncomfortable with what we're not good at. And so, but God doesn't just cast aside and say, we're not responsible in an area that we're not good at. He wants to help us get better. And actually, the areas of our weakness have become, for many that will not quit in those areas, become a great place of blessing, strength, visitation, God's presence in those areas. But the areas we're strong, we don't have reason to brag either. Our prayer life, our fasting, our reading, our witness, our testimony. I've prayed and 10,000 were healed and all of them were healed. And Jesus actually started calling me to find out what I was doing. Like, We don't have a capacity to brag in any area. But we can rejoice together. We can rejoice with Christ. The harsh truth is that God judges bad stewardship. He judges bad stewardship. If what he's given us are stewardship of time, money, relationship, truth, we are stewards of the truth he's given us, our jobs, our example, raising children, friendship, how we are with people, we're stewards in all of that, and to varying degrees of weight that each holds. But bad stewardship is something he holds accountable, and he removes what has been given and gives it to somebody else if it's not handled well. If I'm not handling something well, God is going to give it to another potentially. There's a time of grace to be able to get it right, not to just be slack. Luke 20, verse 16.
He will come and destroy those vine dressers and give the vineyard to others. And when they heard it, they said, certainly not.
Yeah, that's human nature. Certainly not. You will not do. He'll do exactly what he said. If we're not faithful, have you ever talked to somebody that has backslidden and been amazed at what has disappeared from their lives? And often they don't even see it. The poverty many times is intellectually that, and they keep trying to move forward, or they keep trying to say how things are going, how well they're doing, what's that. It's like, why are we talking about this? You know, why are we discussing? Like, it's strange in a conversation. It's either the elephant in the room because everything's great, and it's like, okay, well, fine, or it's something that it's given to another. I actually challenged one of my friends because he wasn't going for God. I said, I'll take your destiny if you don't want it. No, I want my kids to have it. Well, you have to live it if you want them to have it. You can't give them what you don't have. And he ended up losing it. And the last I knew, the relationship with the kids was very, very broken as well. Matthew 20, 25, 28, and 29.
Therefore take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away.
Okay, so here in regards thinking money and resources, this plays out over and over. When God speaks about something that would become predominant in a person's life, it becomes an idol. It becomes, we put it in place of God. We will push God to the side. God has a will in a situation. We'll push it to the side. Either our posture, our heart, our life, whatever that might be. And, well, I need to make money, or I need to put this as a priority. Or we begin to not be found faithful. And we allow other, whatever that other thing would be, we allow it to become an idol in our life. So attitude of ownership, an attitude of ownership versus recognition of the real owner. Any thoughts or comments at this point? Or questions this morning? Sarah.
Like, this whole study is kind of reminding me of being like a renter of an apartment. Like, whereas, like, you know, we live there, we put up our pictures, our furniture, whatever, but there's times like when the kids are like moving furniture across the way, I'm like, no, this isn't our floors, don't scratch there's not our floors.
Yes.
Or like we're all, you know, Javi and I always, constant about like, not that I think that we would get evicted, but like if this, you know, we complain about whatever, like, they don't have to keep us there. I mean, they could just say, okay, well, that's it, you're not under a lease, you guys have 2 months to get out.
Yeah, you can't go and sell the home, huh?
Yeah. So it's the same thing with, being a steward of God's stuff, of like, yes, it's God gave it to us, it's our job, we work it, it's the money that we bring in, but it's still not ours.
Very good. Anyone else? All right, a few more that we'll hand out here. Luke 17:7. Sarah. Luke 18:10 through 12. Brittany. Luke 17:7 again. Romans 4:4. Zaniah, Romans 4:4. Luke 7:4 and 5. Michael. Luke 7:4 and 5. And Luke 17:4 and 5. Victor. All right. So the attitude of entitlement. Attitude of entitlement. One second, I'm going to... One last one. Who can, Norm, can you get this? Luke 17:7 through 10? All right. So an attitude of entitlement. Attitude of entitlement. There is, this is dangerous. Not, well, I don't feel like I own it, but this is more subtle. Most of us don't deal with, I feel like I own it. That's over time, the faithful, you live faithfully, you don't live that way. But entitlement can creep in a little bit more subtly and be a greater difficulty. Luke 17:7 through 10.
Oh, you want that first?
Yes, please.
Sorry.
That's okay.
And which of you, having a servant plowing or tending sheep, will say to him when he has come in from the field, "Come at once and sit down to eat"? But will he not rather say to him, "Prepare something for my supper, and gird yourself and serve me till I have eaten and drunk, and afterward you will eat and drink"? Does he thank that servant because he did the things that were commanded him? I think not. So likewise you, when you have done all those things which you are commanded, say, "We are unprofitable servants. We have done what was our duty to do."
Okay, so here's another common picture of masters and servants or stewards, and they were always pictured as either servants or slaves, and not the imagery of of abusive, more like throughout 8 hours a day. In the true sense, we are stewards, servants, slaves of who we work for. I need you to do this, this, and that. Well, I don't want to do it. Well, then I'll find I'll find somebody else. They don't own our property, our land. That's not the same thing. But the picture was something that was very, very common. And good stewards always do right things, whatever the master or the owner wants. That's a good steward. That's a good, that's somebody, you've made a good hire. Companies want to hire somebody that does well. They don't want somebody that's stealing, taking part of the profits. That's, and the imagery as well in this. And so in verse 7, it talks about plowing, talks about tending sheep. But an attitude can creep in while we're doing right. Entitlement, or a sense that you owe me. Luke 17:7.
And which of you, having a servant plowing or tending sheep, will say to him, once he's come in from the field, "Come at once and sit down to eat"?
All right, so the picture doesn't get flipped. After all I've done for you, and expecting that we're going to come in and there's going to be this serving of us, and yet there can be a sense of entitlement. How many have ever worked with somebody that you're shocked at what they feel is an entitlement? Well, I come in every day. Like, and your point. Well, I'm here most of the time on time. I've worked with people like this who don't even hear the lunacy of what they're saying. Well, I make him money, and so we should get paid more. It's like, you're there to make money. He offered you the job, or she offered you the job for that wage. You took it. Yeah, but it's not enough to live on. Then go find another job. No, they need to raise, and so there begins to be this sense, human nature, especially fallen human nature, of entitlement. And so look at the details of entitlement mentality. Pride makes us think God is lucky to have someone like us. Or if we're not that, if we understand, we have a little bit of sense, it's the church is lucky to have us, pastor's lucky to have us, my wife, my husband is lucky to have me, whatever it might be. But pride can make us think that God is lucky to have us. Luke 18:10 through 12.
Two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. I fast twice a week, I give tithes of all that I possess.
Okay, so be careful when you start tallying what you do. Be careful if you start taking note of what you do, of how many times you've done it, the internal clock of how well you do whatever it is that you do for Jesus, or how well you understand things. And be careful when that starts getting elevated. Be careful when God puts you in a situation which will eventually happen over time, if it hasn't already, where He will shift things to test your heart. He'll do it with a boss, that you will begin to see things that your boss doesn't, and when you begin to have that feeling internally like the boss should do this, take a step back, and they've run a business. Yeah, well, if they did that, it's not up to me, it's not up to you. And watch when it happens in the church. Watch when it happens within a setting where what type of attitude? Sometimes people go through things where they have a pastor that may need to go back for redirection. They have a pastor that may get sick. They have a pastor that might not, may have something that happened. Pastor Torres, Mexico, he had a stroke, had to step out of ministry for a while. What's the attitude that people have towards him? The congregation has towards him, seeing him struggle a little bit, and then little by little he's back in place in leadership. But what do you do when you see something different than pastor, than headship, than the drama leader, the band leader? Well, I wouldn't do that. I would do it this way. That is very dangerous. There's more people that are lost, that are long-term saints because of that, than any sin. There's more people that are lost because of that type of perspective of tallying and keeping track than what are going to be lost to drugs, drinking, alcohol, immorality, that would never do those things. But the perspective of keeping track, an entitlement mentality, or a perspective of how things are seen, I thank you, Lord, that I'm not like that I don't have that weakness, that I don't struggle in those areas. I fast, because, do you see what I fast? I tithe. This is dangerous. So this is something in a perspective. Every man and woman is capable that would never fall in many other sins. This is a much, much subtler and dangerous, especially for people that strive to be excellent. This creeps in, but this is an attitude, and it is one of the doorways that, or one of the venues that leads to an entitlement mentality. Another is that my labors mean that you owe me. You have to do what I've done these things. You have to do what I want. Luke 17:7.
And which of you, having a servant plowing or tending sheep, will say to him, once he is come in from the field, come at once and sit down to eat?
Okay, here's you have to do. It's not working that way. God doesn't owe us no matter what we do. We fast, we pray, we tithe, we labor. All the things that have ever been asked of the saints all through history, we can't claim that God owes us anything. Romans 4:4.
Now to him who works, the wages are not counted as grace, but as debt.
Luke 7:4 and 5. Is that Luke 7:4 and 5?
No, I got 7:4.
Which one did I say?
You went,
That was
17.
17.
Okay, Luke 7, verses 4 and 5.
And when they came to Jesus, they begged him earnestly, saying that the one for whom he should do this was deserving. for he loves our nation and has built us a synagogue.
Okay, so this is human nature is, man, that person deserves or that person should. And God keeps track. God keeps track of things. He keeps track of what's right. When they had to replace Judas, they said, they began to think, it's like, okay, this needs to be somebody that's been with us, somebody that has seen all these things, somebody that goes back to John, and there was Matthias or Matthias, and there was, we got to pick between these two, and they were able to make a decision. They drew lots, God watching, God keeping track, and the replacement. But as far as what we've done, keeping track of our list or keeping track of all the right I've done, often what goes wrong along with that is we will also tend to keep track of what others are not doing, have not done, aren't doing properly, aren't doing right because we're doing well. That is, it's got levels to it. And so that is, keeping a list in regards to this is not a good thing to do. And another that happens in here with the attitude of entitlement is to resent the demands of the master. And this is the verse that Victor read. Vic, if you can get that again.
Even if he sins against you 7 times a day and returns to you 7 times and says, I repent, you must forgive him. The apostle said to the Lord, increase our faith.
Okay, so resenting the demands of a master, and here's a context. The context is instruction on forgiveness, but it's sometimes we get in it. Well, why should I do this? Why should I forgive? Or why should I give money? Or why should I get involved? And resenting the demands. Why should I do more? Why should I sacrifice? Why should I forego my plans? Or why do I have to adjust? Or why do I have to help others? Or why do I have to submit to authority? And these are every unique setting. These are the things that come up of attitude of entitlement and what it tends and the like, what it tends to produce. Any thoughts, questions, comments? Open it for a moment here. Anyone ever deal with any dimension of entitlement, a sense of it, a feeling of it, until you recognize what it was? It's like all of a sudden you recognize, like, that's a wrong perspective. Not doing it with a wrong heart, but that you're keeping track of things. Have you ever found yourself in a, God, I thank you, I'm not like that person. You're doing well, you're doing better, and even seeing that other person that's not as some type of a detriment. Well, we would be doing well if they were doing like me. That's it's a sister cousin attitude of this, which we're stewards. Our stewardship. What is that to you? They answer to their master. They answer to them. They don't answer to you. They don't answer to me. And so this can creep in, and this can begin to find place, and it's dangerous because in steward, who's somebody that stands out that asked a question? I was just reading it. Well, I'm not going to put it out there that way because it'd be guessing, but you'll recognize it quickly. Somebody that when Jesus described you're going to go to a place you don't want to go, and they're going to lead you and stretch you out, and referring to the way in which he would die, being Peter, and he's looking back around and goes, well, what about him? And Jesus said, what's that to you? What's it matter to you if I have him stay alive till I come, if he remains till I come again? And we're accountable to our stewardship regardless of what others are or are not doing. He says, you're not wise if you judge yourselves by yourselves. Or if we begin to tally up how well we're doing, we should have a sense that to some degree I know I'm being faithful, like Paul, who said, I don't know of anything that's wrong, but that doesn't release me. He's like, I don't know of anything in myself. And so hopefully we're living at a place like that, but I don't make that my point of the resting point that we should be at. So an entitlement. God, your grace, your help, and your favor. And you're the one who keeps me. All right, I'll hand out a few more here then, and we'll close off with attitudes that God's able to adjust. Psalms 24:1. Psalms 24:1. Michael. Luke 17:8 through 10. Victor. Luke 15, Luke 17:5. Luke 17:5. Zaniah. 17:5. Genesis 3:5. Genesis 3:5. Brit. Revelation 19:11. Mary Ellen. And Matthew 25:21. Matthew 25:21, last one. Trace. All right. So attitudes being adjusted, making adjustments. This is one of those areas. It's like nobody likes to spend money, but I have to take my car in, get my front end aligned on my car. I need to get an oil change. This is attitudes being adjusted. We live in a fallen world. We have a fallen nature that has gone into remission, but it manifests and it shows up, and it needs an alignment, needs an adjustment. Nobody really likes to do it. Nobody likes to have to adjust things. I want to be set, right, got saved, and never need an adjustment again, but we do. And so as far as the adjustments, the answer to why should I adjust my attitude or my perspective, or why should I even be listening as though I might have to? It's like, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm fine. I'm serving God. I'm faithful. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I got it here. I'm giving. I'm tithing. Because one, we're prone to our front end going out of alignment, our needing adjustments, but the other is we're owned. God owns us, and not in a wicked sense, not in the way that somebody that doesn't know Jesus would think of, but God is owner of everything. Psalms 24:1.
The earth is the Lord's and all of its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein.
God says in his word also, all souls are mine. And so there is something that God owns it all, and there is a responsibility and an accountability, but ownership gives rights, and so we have responsibility. God owns our lives, and I'm glad he takes care of us. He's kind to the just and to the unjust. He's gracious, he's kind. So ownership gives rights, we have responsibilities. Luke 17:8 through 10.
I have that.
Oh, sorry, but thank you. Yes.
Do not instead say to him, prepare something for me to eat, and then appropriately clothe yourself, and serve me while I eat and drink. Then afterward you may eat and drink. Does not he thank the servant just because he did, and he does not thank the servant just because he did what he was ordered to do, does he? So you too, when you have done everything that was assigned and commanded to you, say, we are unworthy servants, we have merely done what we ought to do.
Okay, so we're only doing what we should do. Because we looked at, we're putting our sin life, or the sin lives that we're able to observe against living right, we kind of do a balance. It's like, well, I'm doing right compared to sin. There is no comparison. We're expected to do right. Sin is not doing right. You're off the charts. We start doing what we're supposed to, and we're only doing what we're supposed to. No matter how good we do, and we're doing what God is helping us to do, created us to do, what is out of a healthy relationship with God. In 2 Corinthians 5:15, it says, he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and rose again. And the life that he has given us, and given us the capacity to live, he's handed life back to those that were dead in sins. He's given us life and the opportunity to live that. So we have a responsibility, and his ownership gives him rights to ask that. And again, thank God he's good. The other reason why we should obey God, and a beautiful thing, is he can be trusted. It's not just we're owned, and that's about as far as someone that's rebellious, that's as far as they can get. Forget this. But the truth is, he can be trusted with our lives, with the precious life that he's given back to us. Jesus links faith to correctly understanding stewardship. Luke 17:5.
And the apostles said to the Lord, increase our faith.
Okay, so this was in regards to forgiving. Forgive? Why should I forgive? That's going to cost me. They did me wrong. But trusting God and finding out forgiveness works. Forgiving somebody and what that does for the person, it does for both people. It releases one to be able to be helped. But for the person that was even hurt, to forgive and to be helped. What if they do it again? What if they take advantage? What if they get away with it? Release them and be free yourself. We can trust, but that's not easy. But we find that it works, and we find that God's faithful in that. Those who have a hard time with stewardship often have a hard time trusting God. Genesis 3:5.
For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.
Okay, that was deception that took place. Eve was deceived, but from that point, for us, we do stuff because we don't feel we can trust God. God's not going to meet my needs, or I'm going to go without, or I'm uncomfortable being in this place. You can't trust God's word, his intentions. She didn't have a sin nature. She was deceived. We have a sin nature that begins to build up. We have memories. You know, if somebody hurt us in the past, or we've been ripped off in the past, we can superimpose that over God. And so we think that's who God is. And people that don't had a bad experience with a father or with men can tend to superimpose that over God. That's who he is, that he's asking things, so he must be a jerk. But it's not true. He can be trusted. You know, if I, in relationship to our stewardship, what if I go broke? What if I get old and I have nothing to show for it? Give my whole life to God, and now I'm going to get old. What if I'm walked on by others, you know, doing this God thing and living like a Christian, and the sacrifices that I make? And that, again, why should we obey? Because God can be trusted. Deuteronomy 7:9 says, therefore know that the Lord your God, he is God, and the faithful God who keeps covenant and mercy for 1,000 generations with those who love him and keep his commandments. He can be trusted. Revelation 19:11.
Now I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and makes war.
Okay, faithful and true. You can trust his heart. You can trust that his will is for you, declaring the future that this is the one that we serve, and this is the one who loves us, and this is the one who judges rightly. He doesn't make wrong decisions. He doesn't ever make a wrong choice. And the other piece is what's absolutely incredible is those who do right. We've already established we can't tally that up. But those that do right are blessed by the Master. They're blessed by him. Good stewardship pleases him, and he rewards good stewards. Matthew 25:21.
His Lord said unto him, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler of many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord.
All right, you've done well. Your stewardship, how you've handled things, and he's blessing. God blesses what he's already equipped us. The stewards, just in the natural setting, we're blessed for doing right, and God is very much, that's an imagery to give us some capacity to grasp who God is, that he does the same. That as we're faithful, we have the ability to enter into his joy. We're blessed, we're helped, we're encouraged, and we're taken care of in those things. Not that we should tally them up for ourselves, but simply That's who God is. When it's time, if it's right, I'm going to ask for help, blessing. I'm going to ask him to guide my life. But he'll bless when it's right. And if he's refraining, he's still a good God, well able to bless at any moment. And I can rest in that. Attitude adjustment. Amen. Any last thoughts, questions, comments? Nobody ever had attitudes. Last thoughts, questions, comments. Michael.
On the job that I just retired from,
Congratulations.
there were two times when I knew that people got hired in well after me, years after me, and they got paid more than I was getting because they made the announcement. And God dealt with me to just keep doing what I was doing, and I made my deal, and I'll get raises, and he'll take care of it. And he did. I prospered more than I thought I would on that job, and both of those people ended up getting terminated at their time.
God takes care. The big part is us being faithful, trusting God, stewardship, and allowing attitude adjustments when they need to come, and being open to that. Amen. We'll start service at 11 o'clock. Lord bless you this morning.